Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at johnnydellsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Welcome, and today is November 8th, and we are all rising from the ashes. We were talking before the show about that awesome thumbnail that AI makes for us. Lisa, I hope you're enjoying a Grand Slam breakfast. Shout out to everyone boosting the algorithm. A couple announcements, as this is the show that goes through the whys and the hows of 49ers football. A special guest that we have brought in again. It's been too long. We'll get into that. But first, I have two quick announcements. One is this podcast rocks. And you see, if you are watching on YouTube, which is the most fun way to watch our show, but I have something to exchange with it. And so what I'm going to put up there is this. So in a second here, I'm going to put this Johnny Dell Football Academy on. I got this at the mall, and honestly, these guys are great. I'm going to talk to Johnny later about being a sponsor. They're interested because this stuff is great. They can do any picture and make it. I've done all kinds of stuff.
So
honestly.
They're selling that at the mall in
At the
Fort Wayne,
freaking mall.
Indiana? That
So,
seems random.
Yep. So shout out to RC Toys, and we'll get into that in the future. Next announcement is that I want to thank Johnny and give him all the flowers, and all of you should put in hashtag 40. Tomorrow,
Oh no!
did Johnny
my
Dell.
wife tell you?
No, I knew. Now I will admit that the lovely Dawn Dell did hit me up. However, I knew before she hit me up. So tomorrow, faithful, is Johnny Dell's 40th birthday, and I want to just first take some time real quick and thank Johnny for his friendship. Johnny, it's been so fun being a part of your channel, and I get to brag so much about being a part of this and running the podcast with you. And I truly was your number one fan of your content, and my family love watching the channel. And I just want to thank you so much for being a good friend, and love being a part of this. And happy birthday tomorrow. And all the faithful are chiming in with the hashtag 40. Thank you guys, showing Johnny some love. And the last thing I need to say is that I didn't tell you guys before this. I have to go. And I'm glad that Josh was on here. Some of you know, I run a limo company, and I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana, up north by Michigan. And I'm a previous client asked me to take his son to Nashville to party for his bachelor party. And that is so cool that they asked me to do that. But I have to go to Nashville and party.
Okay.
So soberly, I'll be sober. But
He's a
so
designated
I have to
driver.
go. but I wanted to show you my new sign. I wanted to wish you happy birthday. I wanted to introduce Josh and give a shout out to Josh for hanging out. Love your content as well, Josh. So I'll let you guys get into it. Johnny, you can explain how you first got connected with Josh and everything. Make sure you talk about Baker Mayfield's toe, the famous toe, and I'll let you guys kind of take it from there. I didn't get a chance to tell you everything was going on, but I figured it'd be fun to do it live with the faithful. So have a good weekend, everyone. Johnny and Josh, you take it over, and hopefully I will see you guys for a Victory Monday, and I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
Thanks,
Well,
Adam.
be safe, Adam. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Huge thank you to Adam for that. The kind words. I am turning 40 tomorrow. 40 is not freaking me out too much. I'm not comfortable with it. It's not like, yay, I'm 40, sort of a thing. But 30 freaked me out. Like 30 was a serious, I don't know, like that messed me up for months beforehand. Like for you, was 30 rough for you?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember really. I've been through so much since then. I'm 43 now, and when I turned 40, I just decided I was gonna embrace it, and I went right on my Facebook page and I pulled the clip and I posted the Mike Gundy clip. I'm a man. I'm 40. Which if you're a football fan, you should definitely go look up that ridiculous press conference. It's great. You got to lean into it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I guess just 40, you're just resolved. Like you have not been a really young person for a while. So you're like, for me, it's like, I'm just kind of resolved to that. Yeah, my football dreams are over. I'm not going to go, be a walk-on for the 49ers. That ship sailed a long time ago. So like those things are gone. I've got a family and all that stuff. 30 was like, you can't put young in front of the name anymore. When you're 28, you're a young adult. And then like 30 was, you're just an adult. And so like, it was just there. And so 30 really messed me up. Like it was months. It's just really, really messed me up. But it's weird to think about then when you start seeing like different football players that we're seeing now that approaching 30 is they're getting pretty up there in age. And at 40 years old, I'm like, I don't know, 30 is not that old anymore. Like my perspective on it now is different, but I can also understand, where Aaron Rodgers is at when he's talking about it's a little bit harder to wake up the next morning after you've been hit real hard a few times out on the field and going, the body really doesn't bounce back quite the way it did 10 years ago. But that's fascinating. And so talking about somebody that is kind of creeping up to that 30 years old age and seeing some wear and tear on the body is Christian McCaffrey, that he is set to make his return for the 49ers. He's been dealing with the bilateral tendonitis, and anybody who's dealt with any sort of swelling in your tendons understands like that's no little thing. I remember very early on, I play bass, and when I was first learning, I heard all of the horror stories of bass players who developed tendonitis over the years because they would practice so strenuously and so hard and constantly and didn't have proper hand placement. Like Chris Novoselic from Nirvana was one of them. If you remember back in the 90s, he had that bass way down and it just put so much strain on his wrist. Dude can barely play bass today. And so like he does some studio stuff, but he doesn't go on the road because he can't use his hand the same way because he developed tendonitis in his forearm. And once you develop it, it really never goes away. You can only manage it. So the positive side with Christian McCaffrey is that it's being managed and it is coming back so that he is able to, again, attack everything. And they haven't had any setbacks. It's kind of one of those things that you have to it has to completely calm down. And then you really have to manage it from there. Once it calms down and you manage it correctly, you will be fine. but it's really hard to manage and it takes long there. So, Josh, with you, how do you feel about the news that Christian McCaffrey is coming back this week?
Well, I'm thrilled, obviously. I mean, he's such a huge part of this team and this offense. Obviously, you hear tendonitis, you wonder how serious it is. Well, it's serious enough for him to miss half the season. I mean, that is significant. But he did fly to Germany to get the most advanced treatments possible. And he apparently had a great week of practice. Like you said, no setback, seems to be ready to go. He's only going to be playing half the year, so maybe hopefully not as much wear and tear on him this season as we move into the playoffs, which could be a big factor. And you know how important he is to the offense. He draws the attention of defenses. So we're hoping, of course, that it will help out the offense in other ways, maybe help out the scoring, time of possession, things like that, which will in turn help out the defense. So his return could potentially be season changing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one thing that you really do see with Christian McCaffrey, and I think lends to some hopeful optimism about him being able to make it through the entire season, is, Christian McCaffrey has generally taken really good care of his body. Obviously there's the tendonitis stuff, but the reason I say that is we don't think about it this way, but Christian McCaffrey is only 49 weeks younger than Ezekiel Elliott. So there's 52 weeks in a year. They're 49 weeks apart, and that's it. And Ezekiel Elliott has felt like he has been a used up, no tread on the tire running back for several years now. We are not expecting Christian McCaffrey next season to look like Ezekiel Elliott does this season, right? Like,
I hope not.
Nowhere close, not even in the same ballpark. And but you can see, like, Ezekiel Elliott has seemed used up for 4 years, and Christian McCaffrey was Offensive Player of the Year last year. So he obviously takes very good care of his body, takes care of the way he goes about his business and everything. And that's something that Kyle Shanahan has talked ad nauseum about, is how good of a job that Christian McCaffrey, that he's obsessive about it, that from his diet to his sleep schedule, everything, he makes sure that it's there. I think the biggest thing we have, the hurdle, I think, to get over mentally as fans, is really accepting how much of a boost Christian McCaffrey is over what we have been getting. Because Jordan Mason was being very productive, but he wasn't being a game changer. And that's not a slight on Jordan Mason. Because I've said that in different videos. I said getting Christian McCaffrey back and getting an increase in production in the run game will be huge. And people are like, Jordan Mason's already, second in the NFL in rushing, at different times. And I'm like, yeah, but what I'm seeing on film and where that read should be and where things are going, it's just not nearly as consistent as Christian McCaffrey. There were moments, like I remember his 3rd and 1 against the Chiefs. There was a moment where if Jordan Mason sticks with the outside on the run, it's a 3rd and 1 that is probably a 60-yard gain if Christian McCaffrey's out there, or even a 35, 40-yard gain. It's an explosive in the run game. Instead, it was a loss of a half a yard, and we pumped the ball. And you're going, those are the plays that Christian McCaffrey always got, always saw, always hit. That's why he was Offensive Player of the Year. When we're in the red zone and you're seeing just the ability to run the ball in the red zone is a massive drop off from where it was. And it's not just about hitting the hole hard and running tough, is that decisions for the running backs in zone running have to be so much more decisive and quick than they are in the other parts of the field. And your mistakes show up so much more in the red zone, because a mistake at the 50, if you have 2 safeties back, you can make a mistake and still get 8 yards. When those safeties are really close because you're against the wall of the end zone, suddenly you make a mistake and it's only a half-yard gain because the safety is there immediately. And you may have seen a little hole that you thought was there, but that safety's there, and suddenly you don't have that room for error. So Have you been seeing the same things on film as far as, that lack of production that we had under Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, Jordan Mason, he is a tremendous talent. He brings a little bit of a different skill set, that physical running style, certainly capable of explosive plays, as we've seen a number of times, puts up big numbers in the run game. And, as fans, we get so used to the idea of when a player is out, oh, well, Kyle will just scheme around it and come up with other plays. And you're right. We do forget what a huge impact a player like Christian McCaffrey has. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase, football is more about players than it is about plays. Having the true superstars on the field does make a huge difference. And not only in terms of the run game, but also, Christian's ability to catch passes out of the backfield, and the fact that he's an every down back. He can pick up all the blitzes and knows all the protection packages, whereas Jordan Mason oftentimes has to come out of the game on third downs for that reason. You think back to Adrian Peterson, for example, was a tremendous running back, always had to come out on third downs. And with Jordan Mason, it's a little bit of the same thing. When he's in the game, he's probably getting the football, gives the defense an advantage a little bit. With Christian McCaffrey, there's so much versatility with the offense. It suddenly becomes really hard to defend.
Absolutely. And I think, I don't know if you watched Brandon Ayuk, his YouTube channel. He did a quick video. One, it was super sad to see him at the beginning of the video because he was just talking about how much his knee hurt and everything, and just you could feel the pain in his voice. And then he was like, we're gonna do some quick film study, and he was like using the straight and a 49ers copy, and going back and forth. I was expecting a few more nuggets in there, some things, and he was just kind of like letting it play. He's like, yeah, man, coverage. There was something he said in there that I was like, thank you for saying that. It probably got glossed over by everybody, but is something that I've been trying to say, and hearing it from him, say this came from the horse's mouth sort of a thing, really was great, because he talked about that. It was one of the moments when I think they had Debo in the backfield, and they motioned him out in that little, shuttle motion. And he said, yeah, there's Debo at the running back spot. As Kyle says, it's the ultimate chess piece in football. And I was like, thank you, because people do not understand how much, like, if you're just looking at it from the offensive side of the ball, and I see some really well-established people that will criticize, why do they do this motion this way? Or why are they putting this over that way? That doesn't make sense. And it comes from the perspective of how they learned NFL football. But when you really start, where I get frustrated at is I go, you're not diving into the nuances of the defenses they're playing against. And so you're coming from it from somebody who is trying to teach you enough of the defense that you're going against so that you could execute the plays. But if you stop and you dive into the nuances of the defense they're going against, those little things they do make huge changes for what guys can do on defense. So what am I talking about? Like, you can change the strength of a defense so quickly with the running back. So you can have two receivers on one side, tight end and receiver on the other side, and Christian McCaffrey will be in the shotgun to Brock Purdy's right. That means the strong is to the defense's left. It's the offense's right, defense's left. What defenses will try and do is, a lot of times in zone coverage, they're going to make sure they have 4 over 3 and 3 over 2 if they're running a 7-man drop, right? So, and what they're going to do in that is that they have certain players that they want to keep in the matchups. They're going to try and keep a linebacker in that 4 over 3, because that linebacker won't have to cover as much space, right? So there's less space for the 4 to cover, even though there's 3, but it's less area of the field. The 3 that has to cover 2, there's more space they have to cover, because 3 guys have to cover where 2 guys can be, right? So when you suddenly change that and you say, now our strong is to the other side, and it's instantaneously, and it's Christian McCaffrey, they're going to be alert on those safeties. Alert, where is Christian McCaffrey? Because he's so dangerous. So they're going to make sure they have a certain safety on that side who's their best tackler. And now all of a sudden they got to switch. And now they're getting a guy that they don't want in space on the strong side. And so it's things like that can change. It's things like they're trying to run man coverage and they don't want somebody one-on-one versus Christian McCaffrey. So they'll run what's called cone coverage sort of a thing where, or different funnel coverage where you're going to be manned up, isolated on the outside, and the running back, they're going to have an inside-outside double on him. And the safety is going to sit over the top. So it's like a 3-layer cone. Well, suddenly if he motions out, you can't do that. You're out leveraged. And if you move with that leverage, now you have seriously out leveraged receivers who are going to be wide open. And so it's things like that draw so much attention and put so much stress on the defense, and that we haven't been able to do quite the same way because you don't have a Christian McCaffrey that when Jordan Mason motions out there, you don't have, we have got to make sure we have this safety over there because he's our only chance to tackle that guy in the flat. You don't have as many eyes over there. You don't like, it's so much of that stuff is there's such a chess match there of how you can just move a guy 4 steps and it's Christian McCaffrey, and that changes everything for the defense. And you haven't been able to do that as much. So I'm really excited to see Christian McCaffrey come back, of how much strain it puts on a defense and seeing that really come alive, especially because I think, just my opinion, I think Brock Purdy has been playing better this year than he did last year. The numbers don't reflect that, but how have you felt about Brock Purdy's performance so far this year?
I think it's been outstanding. Brock Purdy, he just seems to find the right read quickly every time. And he's been saving a lot of plays where, either the receiver runs the wrong route or somebody gets beat on the offensive line, and he's able to use his athleticism to extend the play. And it's always remarkable to me how we're what, 3 years into, the Brock Purdy era here. And you see analysts still to this day say, oh, wow, it really surprises me how athletic he was. I don't know if you remember, but when he came in that first year and they played the Seahawks in the regular season, and then they played him again in the playoffs, and Brock Purdy ran around and made all those plays. Pete Carroll said after the game, wow, we really didn't know he could do that. It's not like he did a bunch of that in college. Well, go on YouTube and just look up, Brock Purdy, Iowa State highlights, and you will see him running all over the field. So where the Seahawks scouting department was on that, I don't know. But the point being, he has been doing this quietly under the radar the entire time. And take a look at what Kansas City did in the Super Bowl that was so effective. They put a spy on Brock Purdy. That's how athletic Brock Purdy really is, that they felt it was necessary to do that for much of the game. And his ability to do that this year has surpassed what we've already seen, in my opinion. I saw that stat. I don't know if it's still true through week 9, but at least through halfway through the first part of the season, he was holding the ball longer than any of the other quarterbacks. Normally a negative stat, right? You want that ball out of your hands quickly. In Brock Purdy's case, it's because he's running around for 10 seconds at a time, extending these plays, like old school Donovan McNabb, and sort of skewing that stat a little bit. And in this case, it actually turns out to be a positive.
Yeah, I mean, and I love what you said about how people are still almost in this, oh wow, he can run a little bit. If you look at this year, his rushing and scrambling and rushing, because he doesn't really we don't have running plays for him like we do some, like a lot of other quarterbacks that'll have higher rushes, but scrambling, when you look at that, just on straight rushes, not even trying to account for running plays, compared to Josh Allen, everybody's favorite, big giant stallion runner of a quarterback. Josh Allen has 47 rushes on the year for 211 yards. Brock Purdy has 42 rushes on the year for 210 yards. So his ability to scramble is on par right now with what Josh Allen is doing. And people are still going, oh, wow, he could run a little bit. Actually, he's quite good at it. And he's as good about it as anybody outside of like Lamar Jackson in the league, because he's just a different animal, period. But what makes Brock Purdy so unicorn almost is that he's not top of the league, in really any one category. As you look at abilities, is he top of the league in ability to scramble? No. Is he top in the league in ability to drive the ball down the field? No. Is he top in the league in maybe quick release? No. But he's really good at a lot of those things. And he doesn't have the massive deficiencies that you see with some of these, that some other quarterbacks do, where there is a big hole in their game and teams will try and get in that and lean into that. And when the playoffs come around, that's where it tends to be. What we are seeing with Brock Purdy, and what I love about it, is that it's people said, Spagnuolo said this, and it was just coach speak. When Spagnuolo said, I look at his game and I don't see any weaknesses, meaning there was nothing they could look at and say, if we just do this, if we lean the screws on this, we can stop him and we will shut that down. And now it's not easy to get to that, but if we can, it was like I said for years with Russell Wilson, if you could take away his ability to ad-lib at the end of a play, then he was going to be an almost non-functional quarterback, because his ability to get too deep in his reads was not there. It was very much 1, 2, run. That was, or scramble and make everything up. Sometimes it was 1, make everything up. You could see it on film that he had no ability for many years to get past 1 or even 2 in the progressions. And so it wasn't easy. Obviously we saw Russell had a lot of success for a lot of years with that. But you've also seen that his career has taken a very sharp downturn the moment that explosiveness to scramble is going away, because he doesn't have the ability to get deep into his progressions. And so now I can't make it up. I have to now extend the play with my mind and ability to process the field, and he's not able to do that. What's made Patrick Mahomes so durable is that he has grown so much into that, of getting deep into his progressions and not just running around and making the no-look passes. He still does some of that stuff, but you're not seeing it as to the frequency as he did earlier, and that's why he is still the top guy in the league, because he's grown in that way. With Brock Purdy, you're seeing that he doesn't have that glaring weakness in his game that you say, you just do this and you will be able to stop the 49ers offense. He doesn't have that. And that's what Steve Spagnuolo, I think, was saying, was that you couldn't go with a simplified game plan of like, okay, what did the 49ers do against Jalen Hurts last year? We're going to take away. It was very much like what I would always say about Russell Wilson. Take away 1 and 2, make him get to 3, and a slow contain rush. Don't let him get out and ad-lib. And Jalen Hurts looked non-functional the last, third of the year last season when that was done to him. And so that is a weakness with Jalen Hurts. You haven't seen anything like that ever happen to Brock Purdy yet. Now I say yet, but mainly because when you see the film, I don't see things like that there. What do you think about that?
I agree 100%. You make the point about Russell Wilson losing some of his speed and athleticism as he gets older. With Brock Purdy, of course, eventually that will happen to him. Father Time is undefeated. But what we see is his ability to make full field reads. We've taken a look a number of times where he's gone 1, 2, 3, 4, and getting sometimes to the 4th read in his progressions, an ability a lot of quarterbacks you don't have. And, you make a really great point about how he's maybe not the best and everything, but close to it. I've never considered that perspective before, but it reminds me a lot of an interview I heard a long time ago with Metallica. Right, where Metallica said, we're not the best singer, not the best drummer, not the best guitar player, but the 4 of us together, something about that chemistry, it makes us the best. We're seeing a little bit of that with Brock Purdy, right? He has that athleticism. He also has the ability to do those full field reads. He has that outstanding deep ball. And I'll be honest with you, I personally kind of resisted that Russell Wilson comp for a long time. Maybe I couldn't get over Russell Wilson just beating the heck out of the 49ers year after year after year. But we do see a lot of similarities there with the athleticism and that super sweet deep ball. Add to it, Brock Purdy seems to have the experience of Russell Wilson at 10 years, in his first, second, and third year in the NFL. And that's a scary thought for defenses right there.
Right. I mean, and that's what I've really liked this year about seeing with Brock is that hasn't had near the weapons this year, and guys haven't been near on their details this year that they were, and Brock is still functioning at a pretty good clip. I mean, this is not a bad season in any sort of metrics. They've been moving the ball extremely well. The biggest difference between this season and last season, when you look at it, is red zone. Is it red zone? We have been kicking far too many field goals and haven't been scoring enough touchdowns. Our rate at moving the ball is actually a little bit better than it was last year. And I think a lot of that has to do with Dominic Puni being there, and we're able to run both directions, and we're getting some bigger holes in different times. So that's been very big. Brock Purdy being able to, move the offense and get the ball into guys' hands that weren't major focal points of the offense before are now he's still able to use them. Like Juwan Jennings was having a career year up until he's been having some injury issues. I really like where they're projecting to go. And this is why I called the show as like a phoenix rising from the ashes. That the 49ers aren't necessarily in the ashes. At 3-4, it's not looking good. But you're 4-4. You're getting a huge piece back. You're getting Juwan Jennings back. You're looking at, maybe trending towards the end of December of really getting Dre Greenlaw in there. We had Coach Desi on last Friday. Great conversation with her. She really helped put some things in perspective with Dre Greenlaw and Hafunga and everything of some timelines. But the 49ers are looking like, and I've seen this, and I've been telling people this for weeks, that the 49ers offense, now this is an if, but what I see as a potential with Christian McCaffrey coming back is offensive efficiency and scoring like we have not seen since Mike Shanahan in 1994, or maybe since Mooch in 1998 with that team. That team was so incredible offensively. That is what this team has been looking like. They have everything is just so close. It's so close. And you get Christian McCaffrey back, and you have Ricky Pearsall coming along, and these pieces, I cautiously say it, but again, because their rate of moving the ball is so good that you really just need to convert about 2 field goals a game into touchdowns. And we are talking about a 32, 33 point per game offense that has the potential for almost 40 points a game. Like that they have that many missed opportunities. This is a team that could have easily hung 35 points on the Chiefs. When I watched the film, I was like, they were so close. They were so close on so many plays. I mean, that drop ball from Ayuk drove me nuts because that was probably a house call. The play that it was Aaron Banks and Eric Saubert completely whiff. Both of them double team on the end. Like easiest blocks for those guys to make in the world. They whiff those blocks. If we make that pass, it is probably a house call. You're going, there's 14 points off the board right there. That is 32 points. And there was easily, if you're at 32, Brock doesn't force a pick at the end of the game and you kick a field goal, you're at 35. There's 35 points easily left on the field. And there were so many more other plays. You're going, and that was against the best defense in the league. And I didn't come out of that game going, my goodness, they just don't have any juice. Like, not to sound negative on Kyle Juszczyk, but like I've been looking at this team, I go, they're so close to putting together one of the best offensive runs that we have seen. If it comes together, if it coalesces, if you get this, there's a lot of ifs there, but with everything that I see from the 49ers is trending that direction. You watch a lot of Seahawks and Cardinals and Rams film. When you see that and you compare it then with the 49ers that you're seeing, do you see that sort of thing? Like, do you see the 49ers as being able to distance themselves from those teams offensively?
The potential is absolutely there. When people ask me about the 49ers, I answer very similarly. And I say the problem is not with the offense necessarily. You're definitely right in the sense that they do have to gel a little bit and clean up a few things and improve their red zone performance. Hopefully Christian McCaffrey will do that. Go back to that Seattle Seahawks game. After settling for a couple of field goals early, the 49ers heated up in the red zone. They had, 3 trips in the red zone, 3 touchdowns, bam, bam, bam. And kind of immediately pulled away from Seattle, and Seattle had to have, a huge special teams touchdown and try to mount this furious comeback at the end with time winding down. And the game was still ultimately out of reach for the Seahawks by that point. So the potential for the 49ers is certainly there. The Rams are, I would say, Johnny, a known quantity in that we know what we're going to get with Sean McVay and Matt Stafford. We know what that team is capable of. They're typically a feast or famine team. Sometimes they win 3 games or they go to the Super Bowl, or even within the season, right? They started off, with a lot of injuries, really struggling. Now they've won 3 in a row. We sort of know that what we can expect from them. The Cardinals, I'm extremely impressed looking at their film. They're very well coached. The players are executing at a high level. But again, like we talked about earlier, football is about players more than it is about plays. And the 49ers have, I think, unquestionably one of the best rosters in the NFL. If they can all get healthy, get on the same page, and really get going, they're going to be lights out. And of course, people like to point out, well, you're going to get Christian McCaffrey back, you're going to get Juwan Jennings back, and that's true. But I'm also thinking about the fact in the back of my mind that down the road, we might potentially be getting back Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, and of course, we have those outstanding rookies on the back end as well that are playing lights out, Mustafa and Renardo Green. If things start to come together offensively and defensively, this team is going to be scary. No doubt about it. Got to get the special teams under control a little bit too. That's probably what a bigger area of concern for me, certainly than the offense.
Yeah, I mean, special teams has been. I mean, they've lost us games. They just have. I think that the Rams game that we lost was the most frustrating because that was a Rams team we had no business losing to, and we should have ran away with that game. And it came down to just simple alignment issues from Conley on that punt, that fake punt that the Rams were able to convert. Like Conley he was about 2 feet off on his alignment.
Yeah.
And you're going, you can't have special teams alignment errors that cost you a game. I mean, that's insanity. And then you have the Cardinals game where, again, they should have ran away with it. The Cardinals are a very well coached team. I think Jonathan Gannon has done a very good job. He has also been climbing very much uphill with the state of that roster, especially on defense. You could tell that what's his butt, the former head coach there. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. Yeah, Kingsbury, Cliff Kingsbury. You can tell Cliff Kingsbury was not interested in investing in the defense at all. Like very much that air raid mentality that was going to come in. We're going to have a lightning, high explosive, speed everywhere on offense and really, do things there. They didn't invest in the defense and they didn't hit on things on the defense. And that defense was very much in a very poor state when Jonathan Gannon got there. They have been trending upwards. But again, another game that the 49ers had no business losing. And so when I see the 49ers, I go, the Rams, I feel like they are a team that when they're on, they're almost impossible to stop from scoring 24 points. But they're also a team that I don't look at and I say they're going to be so consistent that they're going to score 32 a game. Like that now they can at almost any time come in and score 32 in any given game. But they're not a team that I'm going to sit there and say they're an offensive juggernaut that is going to score 29, 30, 31 a game. I think they're going to be a team that they have these spurts and these runs, but I just don't see them as talented enough on the offensive line, talented enough on the defense to really be a sustainable force coming down the stretch here. I do think that Matt Stafford with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp is as good as a passing game as there is in the league. I just think that they don't have enough pieces to be consistent enough. They still have not, gotten themselves back to being in the upper class of the NFL. I think they're a scary team. When we look at Seattle, they have a lot of star power and a lot of talented skill position players. They are also very much suffering on the defensive side of the ball as far as talent wise. and they really do not have a very well functioning offensive line. So I don't see them as being a force coming down the stretch here. I think the 49ers, as we see them coalescing here, that they're really we're gonna start having a very much a trajectory that we had in 2022, where we feel so bad about the team early on, and then come by the end of November, we're like, we're headed to the Super Bowl again. like that they really are starting to build that momentum to play their brand of football, and it's going to start feeling like 49ers football again. That's the thing I'm most excited about. So I want to jump into this super chat here from Glass City. He said, thoughts on the audible gate manure and Brock's ability to call protections. So there has been, and he's a friend, Ryan Hensley. He's really, brought this up and mentioned this a number of times of the ability to call audibles and protections, and he's very much, and we had chats about it. I won't tell everybody exactly what we said in our chats, but where we had some back and forth and about the things. He's very much on the side of that he wants Brock to be able to make his own audible, to audible the play at the line, to change protections, and that as he's told me, he said, I think as Brock, if he becomes elite, that these are the things that he can do, and Kyle should let him do. I'm not sure if Kyle's going to let him do that. What's your opinion? Let's just kind of take it down to the base idea. What's your opinion about, a quarterback audibling at the line of scrimmage? Is this something that they should be doing, that you like them doing, that sometimes you think might be, what are the pros and cons here?
Well, first of all, Ryan G. Hensley, great at what he does. I certainly enjoy his show. I understand his point of view. I think that, when it comes to talking about audibles, there's a lot of different factors involved. You're talking about checks, you're talking about cans, you're talking about kills, you're talking about straight up audibles. Like you said, calling your own play, that's a little bit different. I think back to sort of the classic guy everybody thinks of it about calling their own plays is probably Peyton Manning, right?
Right.
Well, he said they would call, 2 runs and a pass every play, and then he would get up to the line and sort of decide from those, what to do. The 49ers have, go ahead.
So even with that, where things got to with Peyton Manning near the end was that his offensive coordinator said he wasn't even calling the full play. He was calling passing concepts. And so he would call in dagger, which is a streak with a deep in pairing with it, or mesh, or a spot, like names for passing concepts, but exactly how they lined up into that and how they and he would even throw out sometimes 2 passing concepts, and he would let Peyton Manning handle the rest of it. He'd say, well, they're running this coverage. They've been running these coverages. These are the percentages. So let's go with dagger if you see this, and just say speedo if you see that, sort of a thing, like these passing concepts. So he was calling that in. It wasn't even full run and pass plays. It was literally just the passing concepts, and he would let Peyton handle everything else, handle the protection that they were going to do. It was going to be get up there and handle which side of the field they were even going to run it on. It's kind of wild to see. But Peyton was just different, that he thought and saw the game as an offensive coordinator, and so Peyton Manning is one of one, and
yes,
in how that happens. But yeah, so continue on.
Truly remarkable with Peyton Manning, because not only are you thinking about the formations and the concepts to attack the defense, you can call any play you want. You have to make sure you have the personnel out there on the field to do it, right? And then you have to get them into the right formation first, and then run the play from there. So there's a lot of nuance that goes into it. And while you certainly could stand there behind the line of scrimmage, scan the defense, and then make those decisions, why not, if you have the ability to do all that preparation and legwork beforehand during the week, which is what Kyle Shanahan is so good at, and then from there, you can still build in 2 or 3 cans to check to other plays at the line of scrimmage as Brock Purdy sees fit. I certainly believe that Brock, has the capacity to get on that Peyton Manning level. Again, as you said, this was towards the end of Manning's career by the time he was dealing with full concepts.
Right.
Once we get 10 years down the road, maybe. So, Johnny, my take on it as of right now is that Audible Gate is kind of much ado about nothing. The way the 49ers approach this is very standard in the modern NFL. Almost no quarterback is going out there and calling their own plays like this was Joe Namath in the 1960s, right? Defenses have evolved since then. Offenses have evolved since then. Everything is, extremely prepared and planned out beforehand. Again, not just this play versus this defense, but also the formation that we're going to run the play out of. You talked earlier about all these little tiny motions and things that the 49ers do to move those chess pieces around. I always like to say football is chess where all the pieces are moving at the same time. And, I know not every analyst understands why we do these weird motions, right? I mean, we hear it week after week. I don't understand why they're doing this. Well, it's because, like you said, there is so much nuance that goes into moving the defense with what you're doing on offense before the ball is even snapped to get these guys wide open. That's a lot of planning and preparation that Kyle does every single week with the offensive coaches. They go over it in the film room. They practice it. They have cans built into the plays. And so I think when Brock Purdy arrives at the line of scrimmage, he's already extraordinarily well prepared for how to handle a given play. Now, let me ask you about this, Johnny, because one thing that I would be really curious about, I personally think maybe one thing the 49ers could do a little bit differently is changing how the quarterback or the center maybe calls out some of the protections. Do they need more of an ability to change the protections at the line?
Well, so I'll get to that from a great example of how the can calls work within the 49ers offense. So I love what you were saying about it. They have these can calls built in and how it works. So I'm going to pull up here real quick, make sure I'm on the right tab, how this works. So here, all right. So here's the 49ers. This is, I'm going to bring it over to my other screen so I can see it. Here's the 49ers playbook. Okay. This is inside zone runs for the 49ers. So this is Wanda Man. That's the run that we're seeing here. And there's you can see the Wanda Man can pass scooter knife. Okay. This is a language, so we have to kind of describe what that is. Wanda Man is the run. It's an inside weak side zone run that is really that operates as a man run. Now it has a can to a pass that's called scooter knife. Scooter knife is the passing concept. So why do they do that? And it's going to have up here buzz box issue. That means a buzz safety, or where you're coming from a too high shell and there is a safety coming down into the hook curl zone. So a linebacker is going to be, that's what you're going to see. This is not a buzz issue, as the safety is the one in the flat. If you end up having this nickel that is moved out and the safety's down, you don't have a way to really block that block up the B gap well. So that's what's happening, is that you're going to be over leveraged on the B gap on either side if this happens. So if you get that coverage, this run will not work versus that coverage. It will work against almost any other coverage by alignment. So if you get that coverage, we're going to can to the pass, that scooter knife, that will work against that coverage. So this is what they're talking about when Brock says we have answers built in for whatever they're going to bring. Is that we have a run. The only coverage we can't block it is a buzz 3. Against buzz 3, we have a pass that beats buzz 3. So scooter knife, if we go over to this is Tony knife spoon. So it's a Tony concept, which I've talked about on the channel a lot of times. You have a Tony route with an outside release. Knife is going to be a through route paired with a Dover route. The spoon is a through route paired with an under route. So you either have Tony knife, which is the deeper one, or Tony spoon, which is the smaller one. So when Brock gets to the line, he's going to have this run play called. If they don't get the look they want, and it's against buzz 3, can, scooter knife is what is on, and then they will run that, and it will defeat the coverage that they're going against. It has mechanisms in there. When we're talking about the drop back game, when we see different drop back games like Spartan Shade Buffalo, you have a lot of different coverage beaters here. You have something, this is why you have 1 and 1 over on one side. These are ones for different concepts. Against a cover 2, you're going to have a high-low read. Against man coverage, your Spartan is going to be the number 1, because if you have single high, if you have 2 high, then you're going to have the through route is really your best answer. We've seen on this one with the Spartan route, Brandon Ayuk had a 76-yard touchdown on this. It's just a curl with on the outside with a fade from the inside
against Tampa, right?
Yeah, it was against Tampa Bay. It was the old Haas, hitches outside seam. And so you have that same idea there. So you have cover two zone beater over here. You have a cover 1 man beater over here. On this side, the Spartan Shade Buffalo can work against cover 3, can work against cover 4. And then if they come with a blitz, you have if they come with an overload blitz from one side, you have a hot on that side to your running back, which is Christian McCaffrey. They come with an overload blitz on the other side. You have another hot with the now route. So you have hots for either side. They blitz you if you don't have the protection that you need. If they come with every sort of coverage iteration that you want. You have answers built in. Now, this is a lot for a quarterback to process through on how to get to all of those answers, but the answers are there. Or if they say there's certain looks that we do not want against this team, we're going to can do a run. And so the answers are all there. And that's why I'm not huge on you have to have an audible, because, for example, against the Chiefs, I saw a lot of people criticizing the way we were blocking things up, because we had a 5-man protection or 5-man protection with a check release from use check on the left. They came with a 5-man pressure, and they had 2 guys unblocked off the right side. We end up getting an incomplete pass. Tried to hit Ayuk on a Chevy route, a little skinny post on the left, and people are, this is the problem with the blocking scheme. They're showing this. Why don't we have issues with the blocking scheme? And when I watched it from the All 22, and this came from, again, I watched every single blitz package from the Kansas City Chiefs this season. And the Spagnuolo special is walk 2 guys up away from the running back, and then he would bring the slot to the running back side. They would overload the running back side. They drop guys off the other side. And I saw them against team after team after team get an unblocked guy to the running back side. They'd done it to us the year before, or 2 years ago, when we had Jimmy playing against the Chiefs in the game that Brock came in at the end. I saw they did that same blitz. I think Jimmy got it out for a 3 or 4 yard gain on that play, but they brought that overload to the running back side. When you look at that, the slot guy was cheating, was showing, he's bluffing that they're about to run that Spagnuolo special. And so we have protection slid to that side, expecting the Spagnuolo special, and they end up dropping the slot into a deep safety and coming off the other side. And I go, okay, what we did on that play was what the Bengals did, was what the Chargers did, and defeated the Spagnuolo special. And so I understand exactly why they slid the protection the way they did. The issue was Brock needed to get it out. He had use check as his hot. He was trying to go for the bigger play to Ayuk. He should have hit use check, because use check was being covered by a defensive tackle in the flat. That's a matchup win. Should have got to there. The answer was there. I don't see that as a protection issue. You were going against the most likely blitz. Your percentages say 95% of the time when you see that look, it's going to be that one. So you go with the one that's going to be 95%. And you say, well, it's Spagnuolo. Of course he's going to. No, he's not, of course. But you have an answer. If he doesn't, it may not be an answer that everybody loves, but it is an answer. And it's reason an answer not everybody loves, because you're only going to see it 5% of the time. So you get your best answer for what you're going to see the majority of the time. If that's a play where you're saying, okay, now Brock's going to audible, and he's going to run this based upon that slot guy's cheating, and you now run a different play, you could be totally screwed, period. You could be totally screwed. Peyton Manning did that exact same thing against the Saints in the Super Bowl. And what happened at the end of the game? He threw a pick six.
Pick six.
Right? Because they showed him exactly what they wanted to show him to get him to change the play to exactly what they wanted him to play. So there's pros and cons. That offensive coordinator, he's going to go off of percentages for a reason. Is this what's most likely? And you build the offense around the percentages. 90% we're going to see this. 5% we see that. 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. So you have your cascading things. And so you build your offense around the priorities of what you're going to see. So I'm not a huge, like, there needs to be an audible as long as your offensive play designer and caller is on and has the answers there. And so I don't come from the perspective of like, it needs to be like, because again, I'm looking at some of our offensive issues and I'm like, I don't see the issues as being systemic to, we just don't have the ability to change things there. I see that the issues are more, the way we go about it actually puts a lot more on everybody. Well, not a lot more, but a little bit more on everybody to do their job instead of a lot more on the quarterback. So that doesn't mean the quarterback's job is easy by any means. It's just a different way of handling it. But the answers are all there. They've got to get to it, or guys have got to, your hots have got to be ready for being hot. They've got to turn and look for the ball. There's moments that didn't happen. So that's kind of where I come down on it is in that way. I want to get to a super chat here from Zach. Huge super chat. Thank you so much. Huge supporter of the channel. Great friend of the channel. I appreciate Zach so much. He says, frankly, I am excited for the back half. Purdy humming, CMC back, O-line improved, and the D seems to be trending in a very good direction. Let's go. Let's go. The 49, I mean, that third quarter in the Cowboys game looked like 49ers stinking football. For the first time this season, it looked like that is 49ers football. So that's what I was excited about. How did you feel about that third quarter against the Cowboys?
Oh, it was great. It was 21 points, right? I mean, they were just, like you said, absolutely humming.
Yeah. And, but at the same point, that fourth quarter got real, I think we were all clenching the cheeks a little bit, getting a little sore, as I remember I was talking to a farmer once that he'd been out on his tractor. And he said he had to go combine a bad hill one time. And he said, it was getting hairy. I thought I was going to go down that hill a few times. I said, well, so are you going to take less? He goes, my cheeks are a little sore from clenching the tractor seat all day long. And so that's kind of the feeling I had coming away from that Cowboys game. My cheeks are a little sore from clenching the tractor seat a little too long. But you also saw in that game, as great as Garendo has been at moments, why Christian McCaffrey was always in at the end of games. Because, Garendo, if he picks up his block on second and short, we score even more points. Ricky Pearsall has his first career touchdown. I mean, he was wide freaking open for a touchdown. Brock wanted to get there. Garendo just wasn't on his blitz pickup. And Christian McCaffrey is the best pass blocking running back in the league. And so you see things like that and you go, and that's why Christian McCaffrey was always in at the end of games. It was like they were up by 13 with 7 minutes to go and people were like, just put somebody else in, the game's secured, and it was like, nope. But I do like that these young guys have started to get some reps. Another super chat in here from Ben Suave. If Brock calls his audibles, he needs to do it from training camp so he can get good at it and have a long leash. I really think, just the way that Kyle's offense has been built, and this is the way that Mike Shanahan's offense was built, that they try and build everything. There are things they go into such detail in how they draw up plays, that there are answers to everything. And Steve Young has talked about this. He said, what he loved about Mike as a play caller and play designer was that there was always an answer on every single play. There was always an answer. He said, now that was also why he was Mike. Let's go over it again one more time, Shanahan, because it's really hard to digest all the information of every single answer versus every single iteration that you may see. But once you get to that point, he's like, it's like Rain Man. He talked about going in the 94 Super Bowl that they had 300 plays with all the different answers that they had for every different coverage that they could see. And before the game, Mike was sitting there with flashcards and calling out the play. Okay, what's the check? What's this? What's your answer versus that? What's the answer for that? And he said it was just like, and he went through all 300 and they got to the end and it was like a couple hours before the game. And Mike was like, hey, let's do it again. Let's go it over one more time. And so he was just like, Mike, I can't do it anymore. But they did. They went over it again. It does take a little bit of time for that to happen. And we are seeing Brock is getting better and closer to all of that. I
Well,
think that was the thing that
sorry, not to interrupt you, just to jump in here. There's a great bookend to that story as well. So the other day, I'm driving home and I'm listening to Ed McCaffrey on Sirius XM NFL radio, and he, on the '94 Super Bowl team, and then Mike Shanahan brought him to Denver when Mike went to Denver. Okay, so Mike, obviously talks to his son Christian McCaffrey quite a bit. He said when Christian came to San Francisco that first week, they sort of had to cram all those plays. He had to learn as many of the plays as he could, getting ready for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he said he had the third string quarterback teaching him all the plays. And he goes, what, the third string quarterback is teaching you all of those offensive plays? You just talked about the complexity of them all. It was Brock Purdy. This is back when, he was third on the depth chart. He was the one that the 49ers had, teaching Christian McCaffrey all the plays to get ready for the game. So it's just amazing how things come full circle like that.
Yeah. And we have to remember too, and I've gone over that lion's share of these on my members website. You can check it out at JFA49.com. But the 49ers route tree, okay, I'm starting on the third page of this. But this route tree is extremely long. It is extremely long. I am just scrolling through all the routes in the route tree. This is all the routes that receivers have to know, quarterbacks have to know, the details of every one of them, and these can change. You have many of these that are coverage adjustments, like you have a thunder route that's it's going to be a go route to 6 yards, and then it's going to be a curl versus cloud, it's a fade versus press man, it's a stop route. So this can be one of 3 different routes based on different coverages. Okay. You have a through route that has certain attack angles that will be one way versus one coverage, one way versus another coverage. Train route, same thing. You're seeing all these different coverage adjustment routes that have slightly different adjustments to them. And then these are all within the different plays. There's a lot of complexity in running this. So the answers are there. It's a lot to digest. This is why young receivers like Jacob Cowing can have a hard time getting on the field. And people say, well, you need to simplify it. No, well, okay, then that offense that we're seeing, that you're really close to 40 points a game, it's not going to be 40 points a game.
Yep.
It's going to be a 28 point a game at peak offense. This is what makes it so great, is that there's so many things in there that can be so amazing, but all the guys have to be on their details and they have to absorb it all. And Christian McCaffrey coming in and learning all that and having a running back who can run every single one of those routes and knows where they are.
Yeah,
is special. So it changes everything. And so I really love the way the 49ers are trending. I love a lot of things that are right now. Of course, I love it right now because we beat the Cowboys and we're expected to go beat up on the Buccaneers and feel really great about ourselves. But what is something kind of looking down the road here that you are looking at and saying, okay, this to me will tell us what kind of a team we are right now, or we're going to be this year.
Oh, that's a great question. They certainly got some tough matchups ahead against, the Buffalo Bills and some of the other top teams in the NFL. But the Detroit Lions are another one that comes to mind. Green Bay Packers, right? All playoff teams, teams that we with the Packers and the Lions had to go past to get to the Super Bowl last season. They want to beat San Francisco very badly, and I'm sure they will be prepared for that game. But I think first and foremost here, before we can even think about meeting those teams in the playoffs or playing in the Super Bowl, you have to get to the playoffs first.
Yeah.
And right now, the quickest path to the locker room there is to win your division. So when I'm looking at the 49ers upcoming schedule, I think the division games for really all 4 of the teams in the NFC West are the most important games. Arizona has a New York Jets team, a flawed New York Jets team coming to town on Sunday. Let's say the Jets win that game, and Arizona is now a half a game back of San Francisco. Well, Arizona plays San Francisco. I believe it's the last game of the season. So to me, the division matchups this year are kind of ironically or maybe unironically more important than some of these big marquee matchups against the Packers, against the Bills, against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I think, the 49ers, as you look at their schedule down there, they control their own destiny. Is that if you beat the teams that you really need to beat, you can beat the Seahawks after, the Buccaneers game. You can beat the Rams. You can beat the Cardinals. You win those 3 games is going to be really hard, because right now you're 1-2 and you don't have the tiebreaker on against 2 of those teams. So you go 3-3 in the division. You have 3-3 in the division. In the remaining 4-3, 4-2.
They could go 4-2. They have the potential to go.
I need to drink a coffee. I know what I'm trying to say, not what I'm saying. But if you go 4-2 in the division, you will make it very difficult for these other teams to not, for the 49ers to not win the division. So you control your own destiny, but you do have big matchups. I think we're all expecting the 49ers to beat the Buccaneers. I think that's a game that we expect to win. Now, Buccaneers have been feisty this year. I mean, they still have, they're a tough team. You don't just want to, they were in it against the Chiefs until, deep into that game. They could not get off the field on 3rd down, which nobody's been able to do against the Chiefs this year somehow. But that's not a gimme game, but you expect them to win that game. You go and you face Seattle, or more, Seattle's got to come and face you, and we expect to win that game. But these are games that you have to win. A big matchup against the Packers. That's a team that has been tough. They just traded for Preston Smith to come back. Get one of the Smith guys back. So that's a game that from there you have to flex your muscle as saying, we are in a different class than the rest of the NFL. So you flex your muscle there. Then you go and you got to flex your muscle against the team that is expected to be really one of 2 teams that can challenge Kansas City this year, and that's the Bills. I wanted to believe with Houston this year. I think they have too many issues on the offensive line. Their skill positions are not deep enough. And so I don't think the Texans are going to be able to challenge for anything this year. I do really look at them as a team that can ascend to the top of the conference next year. So you have that. Then you have the Bears coming, and the Bears seem to be in a free fall ever since the Hail Mary. That just really has seemed to rock them as a team. They haven't gotten back up off the mat from that. Then you face the Rams, which is a team that, again, you have got to win that game. You should have beat the pants off them earlier. They're a team that has been getting on a roll. We'll see how they are over the next month. But going into December, you got to get that. Dolphins, I think at the beginning of the year, we thought that's going to be a really tough matchup. They should be one of the best teams in the AFC again. Not looking that way at all. They've been injured. They've been really injured. We'll see how injured they are come December. But they're a team that you're going, okay, the 49ers should handle business there. Then you go and face the Lions. I hate the scheduling of this. I really do, because you're facing a Lions team that is, you're potentially facing them as one of the last games in the year. I get why they did it, because it's very likely that game could come down to who controls the number 1 seeding. But I hate that those teams will probably play within another month.
That's an excellent point.
So that's why I hate this being scheduled when it is that you're going to have these teams face off against each other and then turn around and probably face off again within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I really don't like that aspect of the scheduling. I think the NFL was really looking at it. Okay, we'll put this game near the end of the season because it's going to mean so much. And it's such a good matchup. I get why they did that. But what the 49ers need to establish, I think, over their next 4 games is if you go 4-0 during that stretch, we're saying the 49ers are back. And they're back in force. And we're going to say this is the team that can challenge the Seahawks because they're the Chiefs because they're healthy. And I don't think any team in the league we're going to look at any team in the league and say, okay, they outclassed the 49ers. I don't think we're going to see that. And that really then sets it up to then from there on, the last month of the season, you're aiming to secure the number 1 seed. I think that's what really you go 4-0, then it's let's go get the number 1 seed. You go 4-0 in over the next week, and I think you're going to pretty much wrap up the division. Yes, you're only 8-4, but I think at 8-4, looking at going against, the Bears, the Dolphins, and then the Cardinals at the end, the 49ers would have to defeat themselves to not win the division. So that's how I see the back half of this season going, or the schedule going. I actually feel better about the back half of the schedule than I did before the season started. I felt like the back half of the schedule, it was going to be an uphill battle. Seeing how the team has performed with all the injuries and knowing what they're going to get Christian McCaffrey back, I feel better about going into that stretch against those teams.
Yeah, I mean, number 1 seed, that sounds good to me. But I think you're right. Clearly the meat of our schedule is in these next 4 games, with the back-to-back road games against Green Bay, and then on the back end, the night game at Buffalo, probably the most difficult test the 49ers are going to face this season. And then you're right.
I think it'll be the most difficult test for their defense.
Yes.
And how do they account for the ability of the Bills to stretch the field and be able to contain a very dynamic running quarterback, or a quarterback that is very dynamic when he runs. I don't want to call necessarily Josh Allen a running quarterback because of the connotations that come with that. He's a very effective passer. So, but he's very dynamic when he runs. And so I think that's going to be the biggest test for the defense. And we're going to see how this defense now, it is interesting to me that they chose now to bring Tayshaun Gibson back onto the practice squad. We'll probably, cover this and with the defense just for a minute, and then I'll let you get out of here. We've been going a good time. It's been awesome. It hasn't felt like an hour, but what do you think would be the motivation for them? And what's the thought process behind bringing Tayshaun Gibson back? What does this say?
Well, certainly it doesn't hurt to have his experience. We talked earlier, we just kind of briefly mentioned those fantastic rookies, Mustafa and Renardo Green. To have some more experience in that room on the practice field, even just on the practice squad is certainly helpful. And again, the potential to have the return of Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga, again, more experience for that defense. And, we talked about some of the struggles closing out these games in the fourth quarter. We sort of focused on the offensive side of it, but on the defensive side of it, when you have the lead and you're trying to protect that lead, the worst thing you can do and the easiest way to blow a game is to give up a quick strike touchdown because you made a mistake or you were playing too aggressively. And so it's sort of, again, the chess strategy that we see with every NFL team every week. When they have that lead in the fourth quarter, they back off, they force other teams to complete passes underneath. In chess, you trade advantages, right? You trade, your strong bishop to take out a key defensive knight on your opponent's side. Well, in that case, you're trading those yards for time off the clock. But then when it comes to third and fourth down, you got to come up with those stops. And we haven't seen the defense really do that this season. It did get a little more depth on that defensive line with the addition of Khalil Davis.
Yeah, I like the Khalil Davis as a depth signing. I don't think that's going to be a huge move the needle by any stretch of the imagination, but it does help your defense not drop off as much. And it does allow somebody like Kevin Givens to get more reps with the starting rotational unit.
I think Kevin Givens in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think Kevin Givens has been better than advertised. I think when you look at who has handled double teams better between him and Jordan Elliott, it's been Kevin Givens. And so I think they want to get Kevin Givens a few more rotational reps in there to fill in at that defensive tackle spot. That's where a Khalil Davis comes in. Khalil Davis has been so unreliable health-wise. I just don't know, if that's something, this may be a trade that they know something about Khalil Davis, and maybe, we find out over the next week that Khalil Davis has been dealing with a lingering issue and they stash him on IR again. It just kind of feels like that. Where I'm looking for is I want to see I want to see Floyd get better with the pressure pass in the different stunts. They have not looked cohesive. Our stunts, our twists with him have not been cohesive. The details of steps and everything is just a hitch off. And so we're running a lot of the same stunts and twists that we ran with Miko and Sala. They're just not executing at a high level. And those are things that if you don't win and your guys get stymied, your pass rush is screwed. So it's, because you're not setting things up for a one-on-one win. That was one of the problems that we had with Steve Wilkes, is they ran very few. It was almost all one-on-ones. It was like, win your one-on-one, win your one-on-one, win your one-on-one. And we didn't win at a high rate. And so now we're trying to bring back more of the stunts and the twists, but they're not executing those at a high level. The steps are off. The timing is off. The rhythm on those is off. It's taken a while to bring that back in gel. And you have new faces in there with Malik Collins and with Leonard Floyd, and Yetur Gross-Matos. I want to see him come back in, but they're bringing Sam O in there as somebody because he's flashed and they want to bring him, but now you got to get him into the different steps of the pressure pass and all that, and your stunts and everything. I want to see that. Will be huge for the third down defense getting off the field. Yeah. The other side I look at with Tayshaun Gibson is I've been seeing this with Jair Brown, and I go, Jair Brown has not been as reliable as I think they want him to be. He's had some busts. He's had a number of moments. I've seen more mistakes from him this year than I did last year, and times where he was supposed to carry down the seam and he didn't. And there was against the Rams, they had like a 32-yard gain. He was supposed to carry the seam and match it, and he didn't. And they get a 32-yard gain, and that lets the Rams come right back in the game. There's a game or there was a play. It was against the Chiefs, I want to say. Now, they didn't hit it, but Mustafa was covering a receiver on deep post and across the field, and Mahomes overthrew him. And that was the only reason they didn't get it. I think it was Xavier Worthy. But you could see him right after the play turn and going, what's up to Jair Brown? Because Jair Brown was supposed to be there. He bit some cheese. The touchdown there to CD Lamb, where he's supposed to go over Renardo Green, and he runs right into him and picks him. It's those sorts of things. Like, you're talking about giving up explosive plays. The one thing that will lose a coach's trust in you more than anything is giving up explosive plays. Now, Tayshaun Gibson may not be the player he once was to be able to go and cover, but he was generally pretty disciplined, at least in the right area, and at least deter quarterbacks from throwing in that way, just because at this point, quarterbacks are starting to believe that they can throw things into a general area where Tig is going to be, and they can complete things, or that they're winding up early because they know that Tig is going to jump on some stuff. And so they're able to throw with more anticipation. They're not reading as much because they know he's going to jump. So those are the things that start becoming problematic for the defense. Now, where I don't like the Tayshaun Gibson signing is that there was a reason we let him walk, because the safety support that we were getting from the second level with him was not near what it needed to be. And that's a big reason they went and drafted Malik Mustafa, because we had those crack tosses that we were not getting his support from the second level, and we're giving up we're being very problematic in the run game. And so they go out and they draft a kid with insane closing speed, who's big and physical, who can come up and tackle and do that and be that rally support in the run game. And so, that's where I don't like as much I don't want to see him on the field, because I'm like, okay, our run defense hasn't been great this year, and that does tend to I don't see that as a good sign for our run defense, but I do think that, those things are there. And Glassie's saying that Malik did hurt his calf in practice and might miss the game. And you do have a drop off in safety. And I think the other part is they don't want George Odom. I always want to say Greg Odom, the basketball player, but it's not George Odom. That they want to keep George Odom on special teams.
Yeah.
Because a number of the issues we've had on special teams is because George Odom was trying to fill in at safety too.
Right.
And so
He was playing safety. Yeah, I think that's great info from Glass City there. And it sort of gels to your point, which is, you're right. Gibson, again, not as young as he used to be. I think we all understand that. But when you're in the right place at the right time, it's a huge factor.
a quarterback will
Talanoa
see it,
Hufanga,
and
yeah,
just their mind isn't gonna be like, oh, hey, that's Tayshaun Gibson. I got to remind myself of that. No, they don't go through that process. It's everything conditioned. See this key, make this throw.
right,
And so where
yeah.
if that safety is where he's supposed to be, you can just deter the throw by that way.
Yes, totally agree. And Huff is a great example of that. Not the most athletic player in the world, always seems to be in the right place. And with Jair Brown, I mean, he intercepted Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, so we all know he's got the talent. Whether he's just that sophomore slump, it's the second year is oftentimes pretty tough for NFL players across the board. So I could certainly understand why they made the signing. Again, great info from Glass City, and I have no doubt that the defense will be prepared. It just comes down to execution, and like you talked about, the Tampa, they're tough. They're tough, right? I mean, you think, man, they're coming off on a short week, a road night game against Kansas
That went
City,
to overtime.
that went to overtime, and man, Baker took some shots in that game, but man, they just fight, and Baker Mayfield fights. This is going to be a fight to the very end, but the Niners know how to do that too.
Yeah, and they just need to do it. The biggest thing that they haven't done this year is step on somebody's neck and break it.
Right.
Not to be too graphic there, but at the end of a game is just step on them and end it. Don't let them hang around. And Kyle has talked about that so much. He's like, don't let teams hang around. And that's what they can't do. They can't let a team hang around. So I'm excited about the back half of this year. Josh, let everybody know, if they don't know who you are, if they haven't seen you, where can they find you? What do they expect when they get to your channel and all your stuff?
Right here on YouTube is probably one of the best places to find me. You can search Josh Putnam, Josh's breakdowns, Josh's NFC West breakdowns. It'll all lead you to me. I used to exclusively cover the San Francisco 49ers. We have expanded this year. We're covering all 4 teams in the NFC West. If you have Threads and you like using Threads, you can find me on Threads as well, at Josh Breakdowns.
At Josh Breakdowns on Threads. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's putting out some great stuff. He looks at the film. He doesn't come at it from, I'm trying to find a narrative or prove a narrative from the film. He really genuinely does look at the film and form his opinion from there, which is always something we appreciate, especially on this channel. I appreciate Josh. Love our back and forth sometimes after games, talking about some stuff. It's always good. But thank you so much for coming on. The rest of the faithful, we will see you hopefully Monday morning after a victory. But until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and go Niners.
Go Niners.